Today we'll look at something that's currently still unseen. We're gonna use the MCP SDK for C# and .NET to build an MCP server that leverages Google Search, and we'll exploit it with an AI agent created with Copilot Studio. Let's open Visual Studio 2022 Community Edition. Let's create a new project. ASP.NET Core Web API, Framework.NET 9.0, no authentication, let's leave all the defaults, and let's click Create. Now let's update the NuGet packages. Let's search for Model Context Protocol.ASP.NET Core. Let's add it. Let's delete what we don't need. Let's delete this piece of code. And let's add the services for MCP. We just add these 3 lines here. Add the MCP server with HTTP transport with tools from assembly. And then we add in the pipeline app.mapMCP. Let's also update the launched settings to point our server to localhost 3001, which is the default port for MCP. Now let's add a new folder for the tools. Let's add a new class, which is going to represent our tools. Let's just add the Echo tool for the moment. Let's build, let's see if everything works. We run and debug the project, and then we open another developer command prompt. And we run the inspector for Model Context Protocol. And with this inspector, we are going to test our project. We can see there is a button for listing the tools. Our only tool is Echo. We click Echo, we write a message, we run the tool, and we see that the server is answering us correctly. Now we are going to add our Search API, Google Search API, and we are going to use this service, SERP API, which is also a free tier. We register to SERP API, we choose a plan, and we subscribe. And you will get then your private API key, which we are going to use it in the project. We copy and paste that key into our JSON settings. We inject our SERP API service, which is a class that I just created, taking inspiration from the code example provided by SERP API, which we can see here. So that's simply instantiating a Google Search object using our API key. We see also the class organic result, which is the JSON returned by the service. And we can see here we have added a new package, Google Search Results.NET, provided by SERP API. In the meantime, I've changed my Echo tool. That's turned into Web Search tool now. And we have an MCP server tool called Search, which in turn calls the SERP API service. And you might notice here that I'm concatenating all the results. So I'm not going to return a list of organic result objects. Instead, I'm returning just a string. The reason of that being that Copilot Studio is still unable to deal with a list of objects coming back from an MCP call. Let's test everything again now. So again, we start the project. We open the inspector, list tools. We see now the MCP method search. Let's write a search query. coffee in Rome, run the tool, and you can see all the results coming from Google, all concatenated. Let's run the SSC endpoint in the browser. You may notice that the payload is not returning the full URL. That's a problem in Copilot Studio, okay? It's a known issue at the moment. So we have to fix the C# SDK. So for doing that, I made a fork of the official SDK. I've then removed the reference to Model Context Protocol.ASP.NET Core. And I've added directly the projects Model Context Protocol and Model Context Protocol.ASP.NET Core. Let's update also the project references. Now we are able to amend the C# SDK. So the function is handle SSC request async, and these are the two lines that I've amended. So basically now the endpoint pattern is returning a full URL, okay? Let's try to test it. And that's what we need to make the integration work with Copilot Studio. Now let's publish our MCP server. You will need Microsoft Azure for that. We create a new resource group. Then we are going to add a new Azure Web App service. Okay, so our resources are ready. We'll go back now to our project in Visual Studio, publish it into an Azure App Service Windows, and click Finish. Now we have our publish profile, we hit publish, and we publish our MCP server to Azure. That's the URL which we are going to copy and paste it into the inspector to see that everything is working correctly. Don't forget the /SSC at the end, okay? Okay, so everything is working. We're now ready to add our MCP server to our Copilot Studio agents. We are going to follow this documentation. In particular, we have to create a connector using a schema like that. Schema that I've already prepared. You have to modify only title, description, the host, taking it from our published server, and the summary of this default method, and then we have to specify the operation ID. We moved now to Copilot Studio. I have my web search agent created. I have only the generative orchestration enabled, everything else is disabled, as you can see. Okay. Now we go to actions and we create our action. We have to select new action, new custom connector. This will move us to Power Apps, where we can create the new custom connector from blank. We give it a name, Web Search MCP Server. Click Continue. Now we toggle on the Swagger editor, and we just copy and paste our YAML definition into the editor window. And finally, we click Create Connector. And that's all we have to do to create the connector. Now we go back to Copilot Studio, we click Refresh, and after a while we will find our custom connector here. We click on it, we make sure that the connection is established. click next. We change the description into something more meaningful. For example, this action performs web searches on internet. And we click add action. And that's it. Our action is ready. Now let's test it. So let's type again the same prompt we already used. Tell me about coffee in Rome. Now we see only for the first time we have to connect to the connector. So we open this window, we click connect. We select the only connection available and we click submit. Now let's go back to our test window. Let's try again. And you can see Copilot Studio made the search on internet and reorganized all the results and all the links in a more structured way. As you can see, the information are exactly the same. Interestingly, Copilot was able to rewrite the answer, not just copying and paste. Copilot Studio has a web search functionality currently in preview, so I decided to compare my Google search via MCP server with the web search functionality in preview. So you can see on the right we have a preview agent with the web search functionality enabled. So we ask now to him the same question, tell me about coffee in Rome, and we are going to compare the answers. As you can see, the references are correct. In terms of answers, instead, we can see that, he has diverted a little bit. So he's talking about cafe latte, espresso, which are not essentially just a specialty in Rome. He's talking about French croissant and so on. So at the moment, I would say the Google search seems more pertinent, compared to the web search in preview for Copilot Studio. Everything we have seen uses technologies in preview, and we have also overlooked all the security aspects, so don't use it in a production environment, it's still early days. Thanks for watching.